Mr. Vice President and friends, I think a book launch should be about the book and then about other thoughts that one might have. So might I begin by congratulating Zia Salam on having shared his thoughts with us, thoughts which have been coming to him over several years, of which we've had some intimation in his writings in the Hindu and elsewhere, and which today we find summed up in this book in such a manner that we are able to see issues relating to this problem in a philosophical perspective, in a historical perspective, in the perspective of events that have unfolded before our horrified eyes in the last few years, and then in the perspective of where is it and how is it that we can find a solution. To have managed this is to have produced an encyclopedia of concerns relating to being a Muslim in India. And my favorite lines in this book I'd like to share with you come from page 132 in an article called "Not Easy Being a Muslim." He says, "It is not easy being a Muslim in India. It never has been." Just reflect on that. It's certainly not been easy being a Tamilian in India, but I can't say it has never been. And I can't say the extent to which it is difficult being a Muslim is a problem in India. But again and again and again I find that even the most successful Indians, Muslim Indians, even those who are most well integrated into our society, even those like Shahid Siddiqui sitting here, who are part of our political process, and truly part of it because there's not a political party in India that he hasn't been part of, are constantly asking themselves how difficult it is being an Indian and how difficult it is to be a Muslim in India. So this is a special problem, and I think the sentence that I've just read to you really goes to the heart of the matter. It is not easy being a Muslim in India. It never has been. And he then asks the question at the end of that article. It's a question that I think every Muslim asks of himself or herself and to other Indians. Why can't I be just an Indian? Now, nobody else has to ask this question. It's only a Muslim who has to ask himself the question, why can't I just be an Indian? And the answer that Zia gives is really staggering. He says, it was not easy when Indira Gandhi ruled. It did not become easier during the reign of Narasimha Rao. It certainly is not easier today. So this is not Modi bashing, although that is my favorite occupation. This is to ask you to reflect on the nature of our nation. The answer, of course, was given at about the time of independence and during the freedom movement by Gandhiji, and then in the discovery of India, very specifically by Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the inventor of this phrase, the idea of India. And while his idea of India was of an uniquely pluralistic society about whose exclusiveness or special character Aditya Mukherjee told us about, at the same time, there could not be a claim made to any exclusive idea of India. The idea of India did not mean there could not be other ideas of India. And the other idea of India that came up in 1923 and then was carried forward contemporaneously with the last phase of the Indian freedom movement, the idea of Hindutva, attempted to prevail over the Congress or the Nehru-Gandhi idea of India. And among Indians, but most particularly among Hindus, failed to prevail. And over the last 70 years, it has repeatedly been rejected, not only by the people of India, but most specifically by the Hindus of India. Now, we know that in the upset election of 2014, a BJP government was formed with an absolute majority on its own. But the share of its vote was 31%. And assuming that they had some non-Hindu votes, it would amount to about 25% Indians voting for the BJP, which implies that 75% Indians, mostly Hindus and some others, didn't vote for the BJP. So these two rival ideas of India have been competing for the better part of a century. And until very recent times, the advocates of the alternative idea of India have not been able to prevail, not only among Indians at large, but specifically in the Hindu community itself. And I would say that that phase covered the three previous governments of the BJP. For I've always held that the first BJP Prime Minister of India was Narasimha Rao, and that the last Congress Prime Minister of India was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. The fact is that things have got confused after that. And we are today in a situation where the first Hindutva PM of India is Narendra Modi, but we are, as a nation, and certainly the Congress party as a party, of which, incidentally, madam, I am still a member, albeit suspended, not was a member. That is not in your hands, that is in the hands of Rahul Gandhi. And I hope he decides that he'll take me back, for that is where I belong. Anyway, the point is that it's in the last few years that the challenge has come with political backing. Earlier, the challenge came with ideological backing, and the ideology was rejected. Now it's come with political backing, and so we would tend to get alarmed, and alarmed with justice. And it is our job to somehow rediscover and maintain the India that we successfully maintained for about 65 years, from 1947, right the way, it's not 65, 67 years, or whatever it is, to, my mathematics was always weak, to 2014. So what is Zia's conclusion? After having damned them as they deserve to be damned, after having recounted with passion but objectively the various incidents, speeches, thoughts that ought to concern all of us as Indians, and after having recounted the weakness of the response that secular India is giving to communal forces, he concludes, and I read from the last few pages of his book, he says, a shade softly, a little bit nervously, but India is surely speaking up for the soul of the nation. We are not condemned as yet. He says the winds of change may not yet be developing into a storm, but the gentle breeze promises lasting relief. And what are these gentle breezes? That Indians are beginning to speak up for fellow Indians, irrespective of their religion, gender, caste. Indians are speaking up, he says. He concludes, Indians are speaking up for India. And that is where hope lies, and that is where hope is going to be realized in 2019 or perhaps at the end of this year. Thank you.